It says, welcome to well-behaved block. Blockaslgist has gnadesv. I was just ready for it to be done. I didn't want to do an intro type. I didn't want to type it out again.
You were like, you know what? We'll riff the info. Intro.
We'll just make it up as we go. As we do every single week. Hi, this is Lauren Schill, and I'm sitting here with Kyria Phillips.
Hello, everyone.
We are here with well-behaved women.
Yeah. We're going to record an episode. And we're going to talk to you about a woman.
A woman. This is a history podcast. Real people. Real lives. All right.
How's your week?
It's been great.
Tell me your backstory. I've literally been waiting.
Oh my god! No, you really can't hear it until I get into who we are talking about.
Oh, it's gonna be. Oh, it's even longer.
Because it's a very quick story, but it's basically just the one thing that you can't know is the one thing that makes it so fucking funny.
Oh, okay, great. Anyways, welcome you guys. Hello, hi.
This was a 2-bar story. This was a 2-bar script. I went
nights
on
at the bar.
Yes, I finished up on Friday, and I forgot that it was a Friday, and so of course I went, and it was very crowded. I think I've already told you this part.
Maybe.
Because I got interrupted by this person.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't get a whole lot done on Friday. And so last night, Tony texted me and was like, can you bring home limes and a cilantro? And
cilantro and some limes.
Thank you. And I was like, no, I am going to the bar. I have to finish this thing. Come fucking hell or high water. I have to finish her. So I sat at the bar last night and listened to way too much of a conversation about like a polyamorous relationship that was just not functional.
Yeah.
And
so you were eavesdropping.
Involuntarily. Like, they were the only other person in that back room.
Okay.
So it was like,
and
it was just, exactly.
Yeah.
And basically just the behavior that this partner that she's been justifying his behavior is like, absolutely should not have done any of the things that he did.
Oh, no.
And then I stay silent through the whole thing. I'm like, whatever. It's not my business. It's not my business. It's not my business. I gotta finish this. I'm working on this. I'm focusing. And then I hear her go, or, I could just finish getting my citizenship to Italy and go there. And I was like, do that!
You're like, I held back so
long. I know, you did tell her. I was like, I held back so long. I'm sorry. I really tried. But do that. Like, you've got it. Just, if you were... And she invited me over to sit at the table, and then I gave her a lot of unsolicited advice about how she should live her life.
Go live in Italy!
I was like, you are in your... Because she told me a Reader's Digest version of the story. He still sounds like a shithead. I know other context things. It doesn't matter. Yeah. He's still a shithead that should not have done the things that he did to her.
Great.
Or
go live in Italy.
No, I was like, you're in your mid-20s, and I asked her, and she was like, I'm 24, so it's like, this is literally the perfect time. You don't have anything holding you back. Mm-hmm. So what is the harm in trying?
Yeah, go live in Europe. That's cool.
Yeah, and she was like, well, if I got my Italian citizenship, I could live anywhere in the EU. And I'm like, dude, fucking go. Discover yourself.
I know.
Figure your shit out. And I was like, you know what? Douchebags are going to come and they're going to go. Like, men are going to be there and then they're going to not be there, but they will always come back. Like, you'll find another man.
Listen,
you're not going to have a mid-20s experience.
She goes and does.
Exactly. If you're listening...
Go change the world, 24-year-old.
Person, I can't remember whose name at the bar, but whose
boyfriend... Did you
boyfriend...
give her the name of the podcast?
I don't even know if I mentioned the podcast.
Mystery 24-year-old. Live your best life.
Point is, if you have an opportunity to go live in a different area for a period of your life for yourself to grow, let me just go ahead and give you all the unsolicited advice in the world. Fucking go.
The combination of you pushing to fucking go. But yes, truly, honestly.
Oh, I just pushed my dog from my lap to her lap, and it was right at the right moment.
It was great.
Great.
Yeah, I endorse all that. Sure.
Sure. Great.
Fucking go.
Fucking go.
Trademark.
Let's fucking go. Now, On this year in history, Flash Gordon is introduced to the world via an American comic strip by the same name. The reconstruction of the Reich abolishes Prussia from existence, and later that year, Hitler becomes Führer following the death of German President Paul von Hindenburg.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
And
We
John,
do a lot of them around Nazi times. There's so
this
much
was
that
at
happened.
this person was at a specific request of one of our friends, and so
okay, fine.
I'm doing this, but I need to get into other centuries. I'm working on it, I promise. I really am.
I was just like, oh, this is even other decades.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go to a different century.
No, it's good.
Cover a 70s. Ooh, something from the 70s.
So, let's see. John Dillinger committed his first bank robbery. This is 1934.
Okay.
Ruth and Leo Steinem were just about the most adorable couple that existed. Well, that would have existed if they got together in 2020. Ruth was a, quote, energetic, fun-loving, book-loving woman, and Leo was an antique stealer. He ran his business out of a trailer in which they also lived and traveled. How very fucking hipster.
What did he do?
He was an antique stealer.
Oh, dealer. I don't know why I heard antique stealer, and I was like... I was like, he
He dealt in antiquities.
He's a theft.
He's a thief.
A thief.
A thief.
All right, an antique stealer. Sorry about that. I was like, what?
An antique stealer and a book-loving woman.
Yeah.
They
I
lived
like
in a
that.
trailer.
I like that description.
Yeah.
Book-loving woman.
Yeah. But by the time their daughter Gloria was born on March 5th, Ruth had changed. She had suffered a nervous breakdown that left her insane, delusional, and occasionally violent.
Oh, jeez.
Throughout Gloria's early childhood, her mother would spend a significant amount of time in sanatoriums for the mentally insane.
Mm-hmm.
We did sanatoriums.
No, I'm putting together pieces. Sorry. Go for it.
The story.
Keep going. No. No, I'm just realizing who we're talking about.
Yes. Lou still ran his antiques dealing out of the trailer, so they were still mobile, which meant that their main summer location was Michigan, but they wintered in California and Florida. He made meager wages and was inconsistent with his income, but it was something.
Mm-hmm.
When Gloria... Go ahead.
No, that's it. I said, Yep, I was
Yep.
logging this information. Yes.
Logged away.
Filing cabinet.
When Gloria was 10, her parents finally got a divorce. This was a significant shift in their livelihood. The money that came in for the antiques dealing her father did was already limited, but when they split up, he left for California for new opportunities and left Gloria and Ruth out of luck.
Damn.
Yeah. She never blamed him for that.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, but it's
Man.
hard. Yeah. Ruth had an incredibly hard time finding work. Not only was she a woman, she was a mentally ill one at that. There was a fairly obvious animus toward women shared by employers and doctors alike. The patience with which they treated her was minimal at best, and Gloria grew up seeing her mother knocked down over and over again, barely holding on to reality long enough to read a book, much less keep a job.
Jeez.
Gloria learned early on that social injustice was everywhere, and she decided she wanted to do something about it. While she started high school in her hometown of Toledo, Ohio, Gloria moved in high school to live with her older sister at her home in Washington, D.C. for the remainder of that career.
Okay.
And she was super fucking smart, so she attended Smith College. And just to ruffle some feathers, Gloria studied government, which was very unusual for a woman to study in the 1950s.
Okay.
Quote, in the 1950s...
I thought you said that to me like that. I was like, sure, the 50s, yep. In the 1950s.
That was me being a very serious speaker.
Yeah, that is rare, though. Right? Studying government in the 1950s for women. Yeah, that's super. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
That all tracks.
Quote, in the 1950s, once you married, you became what your husband was, so it seemed like the last choice you'd ever have. I'd already been the very small parent of a very big child, my mother. I didn't want to end up taking care of someone else. End quote. In 1952, she heavily supported presidential candidate Adlai Stevenson in his Democratic run. We've never heard of this guy because he was defeated in a, quote, in a landslide. Literally every Wikipedia entry says a landslide victory. It was a significant shift in American politics, ending a long-standing pattern of Democratic presidents. Although I want to mention that Democrats and Republicans today look very different than they did 70 years ago, and definitely very different than they did when these parties got their names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, let's just...
Definitely.
Everyone do your research. In 1956, at the age of 22, Gloria got pregnant. Abortion was illegal in the United States, so she went to London.
Wow. She
had success in her college career, and in the late 1950s, Gloria spent a year in India, clerking for the Chief Justice of India, Mehr Chand Mahajan.
Wow.
Which is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
By the way. She was a woman in the late 1950s in a different country, and she was a clerk to one of the most influential people in that entire nation.
Yeah, that's crazy too.
Yeah.
Pippin also thinks it's just wild.
Yeah. Wild, man. Wild.
That is really cool. So she had just graduated college? Sorry.
Yeah, after she graduated, she went there, like, mid-50s.
So she's like a young woman.
Right.
A
young blonde woman in
a
India.
Young, blonde American woman in India, and she's clerking for this super powerful person. I don't understand. Right. We're so... Oh, America.
Oh, America. Elsewhere in the world during the 1950s, I
love it.
Civil rights movements gaining traction in the South and causing riots, speeches, and marches around the nation. Anti-Soviet feeling in the U.S. has swelled to a maddening degree. Any mention of the USSR would get you hella suspected of being a secret KGB agent. Counterintuitive.
Hella suspected. Everything was very 50s and then hella suspected. We are on the West Coast.
This is counterintuitive because if you're actually from that country, talking about that country is probably not something that you want to, like, invite into just normal discussions. So.
Right.
Apartheid has been institutionalized in South Africa since 1948, making the practice of racial segregation not only legal, but necessary and strictly enforced.
Yeah.
The Korean War conflict happens. It's an all-around shit show that only heightens the tensions growing between the UN and the USSR. India tries not to take any sides of it, attempting to serve as mediators.
Huh, okay.
All right. Back to Gloria in India. Around her time there, the tensions between China and India had been slowly coming to a head. China had been a big bully brother for North Korea during the conflict, and India had decidedly not taken sides, nor did they support the UN involvement in that conflict. In fact, they were active in attempting to mediate the parties down from war.
Wow.
They also were trying to claim out some land between themselves and China. Mm-hmm. I think it was like a big mountainous territory. Oh my god, he looks... Oh my god. My dog is pathetic.
True.
And he knows it. Look at him.
I'm a good boy.
For those of you who don't know about the Korean conflict, like me, until I read about it for this episode,
okay.
It goes thusly. Korea split into two following World War II. One side, the North side going with the Axis powers, and the South side going with the Allies. Mm-hmm. North Korea was newly communist and wanted to take back the southern half and communize their asses. The United States, not being able to keep away, asked permission from the UN to send troops in to help. They are permitted, so troops went to both Koreas to drive back the communists. This is massively successful, but then the soldiers in North Korea are, like the communists, are basically being backed up to the Chinese border, and China, like, fucking comes with a vengeance, and they're like, whoa!
Hey!
Not in my backyard.
Leave our communist brothers alone.
Right. So they end up backing it off, so it's kind of a lot of death for naught. Tons of lives lost. It was like this really bad thing. In the midst of it all, Steinem worked, listened, and observed. Gloria had grown up seeing the suffering of inequality and identified early on the systematic oppression that kept people separated according to race and sex, which meant to her that when there was a question of standing with an oppressor or an oppressed, she would always be on the side of the oppressed. Awesome. When she returned from India, she was invited to work as the head of a new government organization called the Independent Research Service. IRS.
Okay.
All right. So have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay. That's because it's a group funded by the CIA.
The IRS is financial.
Yes. Everyone knows that it's the Internal Revenue Service, but this was the Independent Research Service. Oh. But it was a group funded by the CIA.
Okay.
It was not known by Gloria at the time of the offer. Later on, she would have to defend her involvement in that organization from a group of feminists called the Red Stockings. In 1959, she worked to send a group of American kids in conjunction with this research service.
Yeah.
She wanted to send a group of American kids to the Soviet Union for a Soviet-sponsored event called the World Youth Festival. She organized an activist group in Cambridge dedicated to the work.
Wow.
In 1960, Warren Publishing hired Gloria Steinem as their first employee of a brand new magazine called Help! Exclamation point and all.
Yeah.
This satirical publication would feature articles, comics, and fumetti, which are like little picture comics, like comics made of pictures, highlighting up-and-coming talent like Woody Allen and John Cleese. She was the assistant to a guy named Harvey Kurtzman, and she worked along with Terry Gilliam and Charles Alverson. And for Monty Python fans perking their ears up, Cleese and Gilliam met for the first time working on Help!
Oh.
And they would continue their completely non-professional, entirely hilarious careers together in pursuit of comedy from that point on.
Wonderful.
The magazine would go on to run for 5 years. I think they ran like 14 issues in the first year and then like 12 after that, or maybe like 12 and then 14. I don't know.
Interesting.
In the 4 years after that.
Yeah.
She was a freelance journalist at that whole time, and in 1962, an editor for Esquire magazine had her write an article on contraception. It was a real and serious assignment, and Gloria was fucking excited.
Yeah.
Until she sent them the article, and it was sent back to her. She had to rewrite the entire thing. But what we got instead? All right. The Moral Disarmament of Betty Coed was a fantastic look into the shifting morals about sex despite the institutional limitations attempting the opposite. That May, Vassar President Sarah Gibson Blanding announced as for their university, premarital sexual relations constituted offensive and vulgar behavior.
Oh, jeez.
Gloria saw her chance and took it. She wrote about sex outside of marriage. A few excerpts, shall we?
Yes.
Lovemaking can be good outside marriage and bad in marriage just as easily as the other way around. Sex is neutral like money. It's the way you use it that counts. And a sophomore from Midwestern University who had no affairs herself said, "One girl I know is sleeping with the boy she is pinned to just because everyone else is having affairs. And another girl in my dorm is staying a virgin just because her mother said so.
Wow.
But neither of them want to do it for themselves." The belief that pleasure in sex was created only to ensure the production of children seems to have disappeared with the idea that if God meant man to fly, he would have given him wings, and about at the same time. That is a confusing statement, and I think I need to repeat it because it's so good.
Yeah. Okay.
The belief that pleasure in sex was created only to ensure the production of children seems to have disappeared with the idea that if God meant man to fly, he would have given him wings. And at about the same time.
Okay. Oh.
Meaning never!
Never!
Never! Did you see the new Adam Driver SNL?
No. I don't watch any SNL things.
He is a fantastically talented actor, and I really love he does a very good, like, catch-up marriage, which is wonderful. But he does this science room thing, and whoever the SNL lady that is the girl in his science room, basically he's like a science professor, and he's talking to them, and he's like, "And what comes first in the science room?" And the answer is supposed to be safety, but she goes, "The boy." And the boy student from the other side is like, "What?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, my sister said the boy always comes first." And he goes, "Well, when does the girl come?" And he goes, "Well, she said that the girl never comes."
Never. Never, ever. Never, ever.
Ugh. One student supported her decision to have affairs outside of marriage with the fact that women are, after all, the only creatures capable of experiencing orgasm at times when they are not capable of conceiving. Other arguments backing up the widespread rejection of society's traditional ban on premarital sex were pure logic. A Boston working girl summed them up. "I'm not preaching against the institution of marriage by having affairs beforehand, and I'm not going to produce illegitimate children for society to take care of. People who have no share in the consequences should have no share in the decision."
Yeah.
So good.
Wonderful. I love these people.
I know. The contraceptive revolution is not new. It began more than 80 years ago when a German doctor invented the first really effective contraceptive device, the vaginal diaphragm. But science, even further ahead of society than literary heroines, was no more successful than usual in effecting social changes by itself. Just as Malthusian Europe ignored all that the Greeks and Romans knew about birth control, American women ignored or were ignorant of the advantages of the diaphragm and other female contraceptive devices until pioneers like Margaret Sanger spread the word. Since that time, some 40 years ago, contraception has become vital to the role of modern women. The real emancipation of women, says sociologist and historian Dr. Richard Lewinson, began in the bedroom and the bathroom with the rationalization of sex life. She goes way far into stories about the development of how widely and far along contraceptives have come and like the laws that prohibit doctors and the ways in which doctors would try and either work around that law to help women or limit their clientele by being like, nope, I believe in life.
Yeah, okay.
I commented on this woman's, like, I don't do Facebook for a reason because I can't keep my mouth shut or my fingers shut. And she wrote this thing about, like, you always have a choice. You can abstain. You can, like, prevent. You can, like, you can wait until, basically it was just like, you can just say no.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm pretty sure that rape victims would not agree with that logic. And then I was like, and they make up at least 20% of the world's population. And then I was like, and then the next one was like, I'm also pretty sure that, like, abuse victims would not want their babies to be raised in the same kinds of homes.
Yeah, no.
And they would not agree with that logic.
Did she reply to you? Did you get in a fight?
I don't fucking care.
Great, wonderful.
It doesn't matter to me.
Wonderful.
So I'm in love with this article. I think it's really good. Everyone needs to read all about Gloria after they finish. Which, okay. So this is the tangent. But this is the bar story.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I'm at the bar. I am typing this out. I'm really getting, like, into it. Yes. And I didn't register it was Friday night. And I didn't register that it was, like, a very popular night. But I still had my table in the back. It was all mine. It was like, I get left alone when I'm there.
Yeah.
And people had... I mean, I was a curious sight having an iPad in a bar. Like, that's fine. I get that. I know that people are going to come and look at it and then, like, walk away. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I'm used to that because I already read in a bar and people look at that weird, too. Yeah. So it's whatever. But there was this one person that kind of floated and then he would walk away and then he'd kind of come back and I could just see him in the periphery.
Sure.
And finally, I just stopped typing and I looked up at him and I was like, yes. And he was like, I gotta say, it's been 6 years of me coming to this bar, and I've never seen anyone working here. And I was like, I actually really like coming here to work. I do it about twice a week. And then went into his whole diatribe about, like, his own business, his failed video gaming company that has been very lucrative for him and has allowed him to not work for 8 months and just figure out what he wants to do next in his life.
Okay.
And then he finally asks me, well, what are you writing about? I said, I'm working on a podcast. Like, I'm working on research for a podcast. And he was like, what's the podcast about? And I explained. He said, okay, well, who are you doing it on this week? And I said, Gloria Steinem. And he goes, I'll be honest, I don't know who that is. And I said, yeah.
You just looked at him. Yep.
That was it. I let it, like, float away. He just was like, all right, well, good night. Yes. I really wanted to tell her that story after it happened, but because that one fucking Gloria Steinem.
Yeah. This person. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you say it was? It was all about Gloria? Is that... Wait, I'm sorry. Were you quoting a book or something?
No, I just said her name. What?
You said everybody needs to read all about Gloria after this. Did you just mean that we need to...
Yes, everyone can do your own research on Gloria. She's a very good writer. That was me saying that.
Wonderful. I thought you were telling me that there was a book called All About Gloria, and I was like, yes! I'm gonna get it. Oh, man.
The article also talks about the argument that seemed to be popular in the 60s, a la our first episode on Laurel, the choice between marriage and a career. Mm-hmm. This article came out 2 years before the more widely known feminist tome, The Feminine Mystique. Gloria moved on and up. In 1963, she worked on an article for Huntington Hartford in Show magazine. It was a big assignment, and she was exactly the right person for it. A journal was bought, and Gloria became a woman almost 10 years her junior named Marie Oakes. Because she is a fucking nerd, she had an entire backstory for this Marie that lined up similarly to Gloria's real past, but was off enough to be believable.
Okay.
Or what I would have done if I had to talk to Lauren. I'd be like, it's almost the same, but not. She went into the Playboy Club in response to an ad offering beautiful women the chance to earn up to $200 to $300 a week. Travel, live a luxurious life. She was hired for looking younger than 24 and being hot.
All right. Hot.
Yeah.
But she was hired as a different person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was almost 30 years old. So, yeah. She couldn't be too smart, so in the training she purposely got questions wrong on quizzes. She was terrified of getting discovered as a fraud, but everybody else was too concerned with just trying to keep up with the demands of the highly regarded and very exclusive Playboy Club. Her first night, dressed in a corset top tailored to 2 inches less than her measurements, heels that were over 3 inches tall, an entire dry cleaning bag under her tits, a fluffy tail, bunny ears, and cufflinks, she walked down the grand staircase for her first shift as a Playboy bunny.
Wow.
Certain bunnies didn't make as much as others, and it had to do with seniority, sure, but mostly popularity and assignments. And Gloria's first night was as a coat check girl, and it was long, exhausting, and full of, quote, good-natured, quote, harassment and endless ogling.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It was a strict policy of the Playboy Club that the bunnies were not to date any of the clientele. They were not to let customers touch them, but what happens when the customers want to? And these ladies have to rely on tips. Tails get tugged, hugs and pinches, you get it.
Gross.
And of course, this was all very strict, except for the number 1 key holders. These were the VIest of Ps.
Oh.
And of course, the P here stood for Playboy. That's funny.
It is funny.
It is funny.
It is funny.
And it's real, okay, by the way. It's real. Like, they say that too. I'm not making it up.
I'm not you. It was funny, but sorry. My scream laugh was my laugh. My smile was not enough
No.
appreciation.
No. Anyway, these were the men that you could flirt with, date, and go home with if they wanted. Of course, this was your prerogative, and you're always welcome to say no.
Uh-huh.
But one lady did while Gloria was there, and she got fired for it.
Gross.
At the end of the week, she earned $35. Why wasn't it $200? Well, it was minimum wages, less Social Security, and other miscellaneous taxes, and of course the daily cleaning fee of the costume and the initial cost of the stockings and the fitting, and of course the club got to keep half of the first $30 in tips, and a 25% of the next $30, and her nights as a coat check girl only paid for $12 for a full 8-hour shift. And in it, she worked way longer than 8 hours. The story was massively popular, but it did something strange. She had become this Playboy bunny in farce only, but because she had donned the bunny ears, she was labeled, and no one took her seriously for a while.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean...
That's annoying.
Yeah. You show your tits one time for an assignment, and... I mean, not even your tits. You have to get tailored into a corset that you can't breathe in.
Yeah.
She said she... in like her
literally for research for a feminist assignment, and then people are like, we're not gonna take you seriously.
Right, exactly. It's just proving the fucking point. But
gatekeepers forever.
She said in one of her entries that when she took her corset off, there were just like stripes that came down her stomach.
And stuff.
Yeah. And that she had to have it taken in again because within the first like couple days she had lost 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Because they're dry cleaning bag under your boobs. And then that people had opinions. Sorry,
dry cleaning bag, just like a plastic bag.
Giant fucking plastic bag up under your tits to make them higher.
They corset them in.
Yeah, and then they corset basically everything as high up as you can possibly go.
Yeah.
And as big as you can go. But there were a bunch of women that had like different materials that they preferred for different reasons. Mm-hmm. That, I mean, everyone's stuffed, but like it just depended on what you wanted to use. And she realized that like stuffing it with a plastic bag meant she was sweating out in her boobs.
Yeah.
And that was not a good thing, I guess, for that assignment. Anyway, in 1964, she freelanced for Cosmopolitan magazine, interviewing John Lennon. Wow. In 1965, NBC TV had a satirical review called That Was the Week That Was. And in it, she wrote a regular segment for it called Surrealism in Everyday Life.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. In 1967, this whole time, she was also still working, I think she was still involved with the
Help. No.
Help. Yes.
Is that
yes.
okay?
Help. Yeah. In 1967, a magazine called Ramparts wrote an article that exposed the CIA connections. Though Steinem was no longer working for the Independent Research Service, her name showed up, and she gave 2 interviews about her time connected to the organization. In both, she acknowledged her time and clarified her experience, saying, "In my experience, the CIA was completely different from its image. It was liberal, nonviolent, and honorable."
Huh.
The Vietnam War broke out. Gloria was fiercely opposed to it, and in the lead up to the 1968 elections, she experienced a shift in political models. Eugene McCarthy was a popular choice and opposed the war, but Gloria found him dry and uninspired. It was on a radio show late at night that she stated that George McGovern is the real Eugene McCarthy.
Oh, okay.
McGovern's people liked that. She joined the campaign in earnest, and she worked consecutively or simultaneously, served as a pamphlet writer, advance man, fundraiser, lobbyist of delegates, errand runner, and press secretary.
Wow. Jeez.
She brought in the campaign's largest donations and donors. The campaign was ultimately unsuccessful, but Gloria did not lose hope. That same year, she was hired by another newly started publication called New York Magazine. She also signed the Writers and Editors War Tax Protest, which vowed to refuse to pay taxes that would benefit the cause of the Vietnam War.
Oh, okay.
Onward and upward. In 1969, she published an article called After Black Power, Women's Liberation. As the 60s had brought about civil rights change for Black people, Gloria hoped maybe by the next decade we would finally have movement towards gender equality. She heard about and attended a Speak Out rally in the basement of a church, and it changed how she would see herself the rest of her life. The topic? Reproductive choice.
Wonderful.
Quote, "Abortion is supposed to make us a bad person, but I must say, I never felt that. I used to sit and try and figure out how old the child would be, trying to make myself feel guilty, but I never could. I think the person who said, 'Honey, if men get pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament,' was right. Speaking for myself, I knew it was the first time I had taken responsibility for my own life. I wasn't going to let things happen to me. I was going to direct my life, and therefore it felt positive. But still, I didn't tell anyone, because I knew that out there it wasn't positive." She also said in later years, "If I'm remembered at all, it will be for inventing a phrase like reproductive freedom. As a phrase, it includes the freedom to have children or not to. So it makes it possible for us to make a coalition."
I love that.
Me too. It was that night that she felt a click. Light bulb.
Light bulb.
Light bulb. It wasn't until I started just doing those references and letting them just be funny on their own because you haven't seen the movies, and I'm like loving the fact that you just think I'm funny and it's not, and none of it's original.
Yeah, you didn't even have to tell me. I was just like, oh, charming.
Love it. It wasn't until then she considered herself an active feminist. She published an article in Time called "What It Would Be Like If Women Win." It was an essay about a utopia in which gender didn't ever matter and the positions of power were earned based on merit alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 1970, Gloria testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee in favor of the Equal Rights Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The motion passed, and in 1972, Equal Rights Amendment allowed citizens equal legal rights regardless of sex. In 1971, Gloria was a founding member of the National Women's Political Caucus, or the NWPC. It describes itself as a multi-partisan grassroots organization in the United States dedicated to recruiting, training, and supporting women who seek elected and appointed offices at all levels of government.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like very specifically towards these women who want to run. Like, let's get you there. Let's figure it out. The caucus offers training, technical assistance, and advice for political candidates, campaign managers, and trainers, with state and local chapters providing support to candidates running at state and local levels by helping raise money and providing hands-on volunteer assistance. Gloria's speech at the founding stated, "This is no simple reform. It really is a revolution. Sex and race, because they are easy and visible differences, have been the primary ways of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends. We are talking about a society in which there will be no roles other than those chosen or those earned. We are really talking about humanism."
Cool. What a good quote.
McGovern decided to run again. So Steinem was thinking about joining his campaign, but she was hesitant because despite all of her hard work and obvious skill in his previous campaign, Gloria, quote, still had been treated like a frivolous pariah by much of McGovern's campaign staff. So in April 1972, Steinem remarked that he still doesn't understand the women's movement. Like, you just still don't get it. You just don't understand why this is important. Mm-hmm. That year, she also was involved in a caucus vote on abortion, or some sort of debate. I'm not super clear on, like, what her involvement is, or exactly, like, if it was a vote, and where the vote was, and what it affected, but basically it was all about abortion, and her opinions were heard, and she was involved in some sort of vote.
Okay.
So McGovern was also in there. So McGovern was against abortion and Steinem was in favor. She thought that there was enough representation, but he was very influential and the vote turned. One account belies this description, stating that when offered the opportunity to speak on abortion, Steinem was silent, thus killing the vote. Harper's Magazine featured on their cover the next week, "Woman-like, they did not get tough with their man, so woman-like, they got screwed."
Jeez.
Yeah.
Say that sentence, say that title. Sorry, woman-like?
Woman-like, they did not want to get tough with their man, so woman-like, they got screwed.
Where's the punctuation in that? I'm sorry.
In a womanly way, like in normal women fashion.
Okay, got it.
They didn't get tough with their man because they wanted to be patient with him, and right. So because in a normal womanly way, they got fucking screwed because they didn't just get tough and smack a bitch.
Great.
All right. Gloria co-founded them. She co-founded a new publication in 1972 called Miss Clay Felker, the guy who made her rewrite an article in Contraception, like way back in 1960. But he funded the first issue, and it came out as a special edition of New York. The cover featured Wonder Woman in costume, and inside was an appreciative essay about how Wonder Woman had been depowered. They made 300,000 test copies, and it sent it out nationwide. It sold out in 8 days.
Cool.
Yeah. 26,000 subscriptions came in a matter of weeks. The publication would go on to be purchased by the Feminist Majority Foundation, but it wouldn't be until like 2000 that it would have. So it went on for 30-something years.
Okay.
In 1955, an organization called the National Press Club voted to allow African Americans in their club. Its goals were, quote, to promote social enjoyment among the members, to cultivate literary taste, to encourage friendly intercourse among newspapermen and those with whom they were thrown into contact in the pursuit of their vocation, to aid members in distress, and to foster the ethical standards of the profession, end quote.
Okay.
But women were not allowed in yet, so they decided to make their own offshoot called the Women's National Press Club. In 1970, that organization voted to allow men into their club and renamed it the Washington Press Club.
Oh.
We're going to let men in, make it gender neutral. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
They led the way for the National Press Club, the original one, to allow women into their own club. Once it was fully integrated in 1972, Gloria was their first female speaker.
Cool.
Yeah. Which I kind of love. Like, all right, it's just such an easy thing for women to make that decision. Be like, okay, we're going to let men in here. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We will invite that, like, we can treat them as equals.
Yeah.
That's how we want to be treated. Treat us like equals. That's it. That's all we're asking. Please. In 1973, the first annual conference for stewardesses for women's rights featured Gloria Steinem as a key speaker. Though the organization folded in 1976, Gloria was a supporter to the very end. Steinem's tribute to the depowered Wonder Woman was effective. The January-February 1973 issue of Wonder Woman featured Diana Prince in her beloved costume. They had taken it away for a while because it was, like, too revealing.
Yeah.
In 1975, a radical feminist group we mentioned before called the Red Stockings published a report by Steinem that Steinem had put together in the late 1950s. It was about her work on the Vienna Youth Festival when she sent all those American kids to...
With the IRS.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was intended for research there. And the Red Stockings were really upset with her for having worked for a company that was at the time funded by the CIA. The group and others criticized Gloria further by positing that her work was only to gain notoriety for her glamorous image.
Oh.
Yeah. The next year, she attended the first ever woman-only Passover Seder. It was held in Esther Broner's apartment, and there were 13 women in attendance.
Cool.
Yeah. In 1977, Steinem became an associate for a new feminist nonprofit called the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press, or WIFP. Their goals were to increase communication between women and connect the public with forms of women-based media. When Renee Richards underwent a very heavily publicized sex reassignment surgery, Renee came under intense judgment because it was, quote, a frightening instance of what feminism could lead to, end quote, and proof that feminism isn't necessary. Steinem was incensed, arguing, like we talked about in our Dora episode, by the way, that these people, quote, surgically mutilate their own bodies, end quote, in order to conform to a gender that is inexorably tied to physical body parts. Wow. She has said also, quote, feminists are right to feel uncomfortable about the need for and uses of transsexualism. If the shoe doesn't fit, must we change the foot?
Huh. Don't buy a different foot.
Don't cut your foot off and then go get a different foot. Just buy a different shoe.
Yeah.
Because Gloria enjoyed writing, she published an op-ed in 1978 for Ms. Magazine titled, If Men Could Menstruate.
Oh.
Kyria. Oh my god. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I need to give you some very choice excerpts here because it's amazing.
I'm ready.
Oh my god. Male human beings have built whole cultures around the idea that penis envy is natural to women, though having such an unprotected organ might be said to make men vulnerable, and the power to give birth make womb envy at least as logical. Congress would fund a National Institute of Dysmenorrhea to help stamp out monthly discomforts. Sanitary supplies would be federally funded and free. Of course, some men would still pay for the prestige of commercial brands such as John Wayne tampons, Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope pads, Joe Namath jock shields, quote, for those light bachelor days, end quote.
Oh my god.
Military men, right-wing politicians, and religious fundamentalists would cite menstruation as proof only men could serve in the army. And male radicals and left-wingers would insist that women are equal, just different, and that any woman could enter their ranks if she were willing to self-inflict a major wound every month. It is a beautiful piece. It is so beautiful.
I especially loved, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning where she called the penis an unprotected organ.
Yes. No, I love it.
Amazing. Ignoring the fact that it's just protruding out there with no protection.
Let's just assume that all of this other stuff is true. Like, let's just accept that one for a minute and then and move on. The next year, she published an article on female genital mutilation and brought it for the first time to the forefront of America's mind. Mm-hmm. She said, the real reasons for genital mutilation can only be understood in the context of the patriarchy. Men must control women's bodies as the means of control of production, and thus repress the independent power of women's sexuality. For the record, she also argues against circumcision for the same reasons and for the fact that 90% of the time it is a completely medically unnecessary practice. She had a lot of articles and opinions, and people seemed to be asking to hear them, so she put together a collection of essays and articles, and in 1983 she published a book called Outrageous Acts and Everyday Rebellions.
Cool.
In it is contained the Playboy expose, the menstruation essay, a deeply personal piece called Ruth's Song, and other pieces I haven't mentioned yet, like The Politics of Food and Erotica versus Pornography. Gloria harshly criticizes pornography while distinguishing it from erotica writing. Quote, erotica is as different from pornography as love is from rape, as dignity is from humiliation, as partnership is from slavery, as pleasure is from pain.
Yikes.
Blatant or subtle, pornography involves no equal power or mutuality. In fact, much of the tension and drama comes from the clear idea that one person is dominating the other. And she argues that it is a serious threat to women.
Interesting. I respectfully disagree, Gloria. Personally.
I agree. I
know.
Tony has given me many a lecture, and I'm like, no.
Oh, I'm not going to lecture you. No, I respectfully disagree, personally, for my life.
That's fine.
for women as a whole, and they can choose their own adventure when it comes to porn. I am a choose your own adventure kind of person in general.
That's fine.
Abortion, porn, like all of
Whatever,
it.
you do what you want.
I'm just a little taken aback by I respectfully disagree with the drastic nature in which she, like, sex and rape. Like, those are, I don't find erotica and porn to be so black and white as, like, sex and rape. Like, I'm consenting to watching porn and reading erotica.
That's not what she's talking about. She's talking about the people that are in the porn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is degrading to them, and that there is in that thing, in that act that you are watching, like, there is no mutuality, there's no respect. Like, it is...
I disagree. I'm engaging in sex on camera for money. Like...
That's great.
There's, like, I feel like that's just a level of... That's the only level of respect that you kind of, like, need to have if that's the choice that you, like, if that's how you want to make your living.
That's fair.
Engaging in sex on camera for money.
That's fair. And I bet, I'm sure that there have been a lot of... I mean, I don't really follow that world, but I'm sure that there have been, like, a lot of really good developments over... I mean, this was, back in the 80s. So,
Definitely.
like, I would say that there's probably been a lot of, like, improvements in
Absolutely.
care and quality of these people.
I mean, the porn community has come under a lot of fire several times over the past several decades for several reasons.
Yes.
That they should. Like,
yeah.
So there's a lot of very serious, like, testing and protection stuff, at least in the porn that I partake in.
Right.
I try to be ethical in my porn consumption.
Gotcha. Well, that's good.
And I urge everyone to do the same. Don't watch creepy porn. Like, you know. Pay for it.
By the time 1984 rolled around, Gloria had friends and supporters in Congress. The South African apartheid system was really getting a lot of press, so Gloria gave her own attentions to it and went to a protest at the South African embassy. Mm-hmm. She, along with many civil rights activists, and I'm sorry, I'm still on porn. Did you hear about that? Did you hear about that court case that where the women, I want to say in California, they're, like, allowed to basically own the business of, like, they're allowed to own their own porn business.
Oh, no.
I don't remember exactly what state it's in, but it was a big lawsuit, basically, where these women were, like, fighting to be able to be the owners of, like, this business that they do all of this stuff in.
Yeah.
By the time 1984 rolled around, Gloria had friends and supporters in Congress. Mm-hmm. The South African apartheid system was really getting a lot of press, so Gloria gave her own attentions to it and went to a protest at the South African embassy. Wow. She, along with many civil rights activists, and even a number of congressmen, were arrested outside the embassy for disorderly conduct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congressmen arrested.
Congressmen.
Protesting. What a time.
Yeah. What a time that they were arrested for trying to demand racial equality.
Yeah.
What
a time.
What a time. That's so unlike our own time.
Yeah.
At all. Because everything's perfect now.
And also our Congress people are turds for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, I've never heard about, I mean, like, Bernie Sanders back when he was super young, but, like, I've never heard of congressmen or senators that are active now showing up at protests and being disorderly. Yeah. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Most un-American government we've ever had.
In 1986, Steinem was diagnosed with breast cancer. I don't really know how she beat it, but she's here today, so that's, like, she beat it, obviously. When the Gulf War broke out in 1991, Steinem was among the first to denounce the incursion, stating that the goal of defending democracy was a pretense for entering the Middle East. Stateside, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was dealing with allegations of misconduct, and Gloria was outspoken in support of the accuser, Anita Hill. Okay. He eventually would go on to become a justice. This was actually while he was getting, like, his confirmation hearings to become a justice. Yeah. The next year, Steinem co-founded a new organization called Choice USA, which mobilized to provide support for younger generation lobbyists speaking in favor of reproductive choice. Mm-hmm. The year after that, she co-produced and narrated HBO documentary called Multiple Personalities, The Search for Deadly Memories. It won an Emmy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Neat.
Emmy. She also co-produced a TV movie for Lifetime called Better Off Dead, which examined the parallel forces that both oppose abortion and support the death penalty. She was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia in 1994, which is a horrifying condition wherein for seconds to minutes at a time, you get just sudden and severe shock-like pain to one side of your face.
Oh.
They can be triggered by just a touch to the face, and it is apparently one of the most painful conditions out there.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. But onward and upward. She said of approaching 60 that she had entered a new phase in her life, wherein the demands of gender she had faced from adolescence onward had been taken off her shoulders. In 1995, her biography was published. It was called Education of a Woman, The Life of Gloria Steinem. It's not whatever you wanted to
All
be.
about Gloria.
All about Gloria.
She really missed out then, honestly.
That should be her next one.
Yeah.
Gloria, if you're listening.
Yeah. Gloria Steinem, if you're listening to our tiny podcast, write a new book.
All
or
about...
let me write it. Or something, and I'll name it All About Gloria.
It will be 15 pages, and it will
a
be
biography endorsed by Gloria Steinem. Written by Kyria and Lauren. And then I will become famous. Rich.
2 years later, a second book came out, Gloria Steinem, Her Passions, Politics, and Mystique. In 1998, Bill Clinton was in the process of being impeached for inappropriate relations with a number of females who accused him of sexual harassment. Steinem published an op-ed in the New York Times called Feminists and the Clinton Question. In it, Gloria posited that the accounts by the Clinton accusers did not represent sexual harassment. Nowhere in the article did she discount any of the testimonies of the accusers, but she would say that it wasn't sexual harassment. She would later stand by this article, but adds that today she would not write it.
Okay.
Then she fell in love. In 2000, when she was 66, she married Christian Bale's dad named David.
Christian Bale?
Yeah.
Batman?
Batman!
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. She was Batman's stepmom.
Okay.
It was held in Gloria's friend's home, who happened to be the principal chief for the Cherokee Nation, Wilma Mankiller.
Oh.
Wilma Mankiller. I love that name. They were very happy together, but in 2003, Bale died of brain lymphoma.
Oh.
They were only married for 3 years.
Yeah.
During the 2004 election, Gloria fiercely opposed Bush's administration, stating, quote, that there has never been an administration more hostile to women's equality, to the reproductive freedom as a fundamental human right, and has acted on that hostility. If he is elected in 2004, abortion will be criminalized in this country.
I have news for you. It fucking got worse.
Yeah. Yep. She heavily supported the Democratic nominees in the 2008 election. She would continue to lean her support toward Hillary Clinton, and it was because she thought the country was in such bad shape it would take 2 terms of Obama and 2 of a Clinton to actually make a difference. God, we were so close, weren't we?
I know. It's a real big bummer.
Life is confusing and people are insane. Steinem has stated, I think the fact that I've become a symbol for women's movement is somewhat accidental. A woman member of Congress, for example, might be identified as a member of Congress. It doesn't mean she's any less of a feminist, but she's identified by her nearest male analog. Well, I don't have a male analog, so the press has to identify me with the movement. I suppose I could be referred to as a journalist, but because Ms. is part of a movement and not just a typical magazine, I'm more likely to be identified with the movement. There's no other slot to put me in. In 2013, Gloria performed on stage at an event called Chime for Change, The Sound of Change Live, and in 2014 she spoke at the Apollo Theater, connected to the same organization, which focuses on using innovative approaches to fundraising for women. In 2015, she joined an organization called the Women's Walk for Peace in Korea. That organization has the specific goal of getting a large group of women from both Koreas to walk the 2-mile demilitarized zone from between the two countries, which is meant to be a symbolic action taken for peace in the Korean Peninsula, suffering for 70 years after its division at the end of World War II. Yeah. It is especially believed that the role of women in this act would help and support the reunification of family members that had been divided by the split, prolonged for 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
In the 2016 election, she made a comment that garnered quite a bit of criticism. I am sitting way too far from my mic.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm being bad about it. When asked to comment on Bernie's campaign, she explained the reason that so many Democratic women were supporting him is because, quote, when you're young, you're thinking, where are the boys? The boys are with Bernie, end quote. Mm-hmm. She says it was misinterpreted.
I disagree. I don't know how else that could be interpreted. I really do. I have so many mixed feelings about Gloria Steinem. I appreciate everything that she did do, but I'm like,
no, that's why I'm throwing in the bad stuff too.
Yeah, I'm like, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I'm
Listen
trying
to the younger generations.
I'm trying to throw in the bad
because
stuff too.
Because you were them once.
Yes.
That's my thing. Yeah.
She was a very obvious, strong supporter of Hillary and had been since 2008 election. It was a devastating blow to women around the U.S. when Clinton lost the 2016 election, and Gloria was no different. She was part of the Women's March on Washington and spoke at the event a day after Donald Dump was...
Dump, that's it. Okay. That's the one we're using. That's the version we're using. Donald Dump. Go on.
A day after Donald Dump was sworn into office. He was an asshat. What were things like for you in Texas when that happened? Like, what? Tell me about the election.
It's weird. So I lived in Texas my whole life, pretty much growing up, which is a red state. But I lived in San Antonio, which I think is at last census was like 65% Latino.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the major cities, Dallas being the one that'll swing a little bit,
mm-hmm.
but all of the major cities in Texas go blue. San Antonio, Austin, Houston, El Paso, and most of the time Dallas, but it's a little more speckled.
Okay.
So it was interesting. I went to the library to vote, and this woman who had like a red pixie cut, I remember it so vividly. It was a red pixie cut, and it was very obviously dyed red, like, because it was just a plummy, but a red that doesn't grow out of people's head.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this because I've had this hair color.
Okay.
Anyway, she walks out, and I'm waiting there in line, and she goes, Trump! And I was like,
oh my God.
First of all, you're not allowed to do that. Second of all, why did you feel the need to do it? That's literally all she said. That she just kind of did a small fist bump and kept walking. And I'm like, you're just like a 6-year-old woman leaving a library, and there's just like a line of people outside. Like, what do you think you accomplished? You just look dumb.
You accomplished nothing.
Yeah, you accomplished nothing. You look dumb. You wasted your breath. You're a moron. So yeah, it was weird. I definitely had people in my life that I had to like coworkers and stuff that I was like, yike. Oh my God, you're wearing a MAGA hat to work. Jesus Christ. What the fuck? So, I don't know, it was weird, but I'm also a white woman, so, like, I didn't have a lot of personal, like, shit aimed at me.
Right.
But it was a weird time. The night of the election, I literally laid in bed crying as results came.
Well, yeah, a lot of people did.
And I was like, this is super upsetting.
I lived in Tulsa, and obviously there were a lot of people. Fun fact, Oklahoma was the only state in the 2016 election that went entirely red, not a single blue district.
I had no idea.
Gerrymandering.
Yeah. I think you did tell me about how, like, some of those districts are just wackadoo.
So after I voted, I went to work and I was, like, feeling great because I thought, all these people voted, great. And, like, I was working with, like, the most, what I thought were, like, liberal-minded people in Tulsa.
Sure. Yeah.
And, no, that was not...
Not the case.
Not the case. The night of the election, so we had these downstairs neighbors, and they were a Mexican family, and the night of the election, their car got set on fire.
What the fuck?
And then for, like, the next couple weeks, dudes in... Oh, my God. Teeny tiny dudes in big-ass trucks.
Yeah.
I will always shit-talk on a big-ass... Like, I will always shit-talk on trucks.
I think we've earned that right.
I have...
Living in
yes! Oh, my God. It's all true.
You living in Oklahoma, me living in Texas. It's all true.
And I went to high school in Georgia. I had to deal with all of the, like, Confederate flags everywhere.
Wieners.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
one cares about
Nope,
you.
you're horrible. So, for the next 2 weeks, everyone was, like, literally just had giant Confederate flags, like, fucking on the back of their big-ass trucks, and, like, guns on their gun racks,
Yeah.
like, with renewed vigor.
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know how much gunfire the night of the election.
Jesus.
Just random gunfire celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm not unfamiliar with that because San Antonians just, like, shoot their guns up in the air when the Spurs win. So.
It's just not a new noise.
Yeah, no, that just happens.
So Gloria Steinem is still active in feminism today, and she has a mixed audience.
Absolutely.
For good reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's the way that we should look at most people is, like, thank them for the work that they've done.
Right.
But now you're not serving the movement of the majority.
Right, yeah.
So you need to get with the times. Or just like, hey, you've said these things are hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Can we change your thinking on them or something? So I think that's important, is to acknowledge all the work that Gloria Steinem absolutely put into furthering reproductive choice. And continuing to question, like, not putting everybody on a pedestal.
I think that's a really big thing. Is I have tried to. I was talking to Greg Gary about this. If I know a thing, like, I know it, and I'm going to just die on the hill of knowing it because it's truth. And as you and Tony will have to attest, I'm right a lot.
Sure.
But if new information comes my way, like, I am more than happy to fucking change my tune and apologize to whoever I need to.
Yeah.
Because if that was something that ended up, like, that could have been hurtful towards anyone, like, I am absolutely that person, because that has never and will never be my intention. Mm-hmm. But I think that is also, like, in service of my commitment to learning forever. Yeah. I always want to learn more. And so if you can give me more information that allows me to change my opinions and make me a more intelligent and more informed human being, like, please share. Yeah. Yeah. And change your mind. Like, don't be afraid to change your mind on things. No. Learn more and figure it out yourself. Yeah. So I was
pro-life in high school, and then my freshman year of college, I got an abortion. So that can stay in if you want it.
Great.
Like, that won't bother me. Because I was pro-life in high school when it had no bearing on my life. It was a subject that didn't affect me. I was pro-life because I just thought people shouldn't kill babies, and I grew up in Texas.
Right.
You know? And my own mom was like, I'm pro-choice. Because I was like a 15-year-old just spouting bullshit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
Because you were hearing it from all your friends, and they're all...
And the news, and, you know, whatever. And then my freshman year of college, I had an abortion in San Antonio, Texas. So, when you learn new information, or when things start to affect you, your tune changes really quickly. So, I encourage people to always think about things as if they were affecting them. Yeah. So,
if this were happening to you in this moment in your life, how would it affect you?
Yeah. Or what would you want to change so that it did not?
Exactly.
So, anywho, yeah.
Oh, speaking of affecting, did you get tested this week?
I did. Yes, I went and got tested this week. Everybody go get tested.
Woohoo.
I feel like that ties in decently.
I was at Planned Parenthood yesterday, so go Planned Parenthood.
Go Planned Parenthood. We love you. I feel like that ties in real good. Gloria.
Yes, Gloria. There are a lot of good things that she has written, and so I would say, like, encourage all of our listener to use the brick that's in your hand to, like, read a couple articles. I would highly suggest that If Men Could Menstruate. It's very funny.
Great. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not even opposed to. I might go buy her book.
No, I mean, I would like to check it out of a library. Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to buy it, but
that's true.
I would like to go read it.
I am so bad at libraries, so I end up just buying books and never reading them. I'm bad at books, apparently.
No, I
have 4 books.
That was one thing I was very good at. So there was not a whole lot to do in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. And so we would go to Barnes & Noble a lot. And one of the first times we went to Barnes & Noble together, I disappeared. And I came back with, like, a stack of books. Mm-hmm. And Aaron's like, we don't have that much money. What are you talking about? And I mean, like, I had been scouring all of the little bins, and, like, $20.
Wow.
It was, like, less than $20 for a big ass stack of books, and I was just, I like books. Mm-hmm. And I've had to like pare down my collection a lot. Yeah. as I've been moving around, and I still get teased about how many books I have, and I'm like, no, I don't have enough.
Not enough books.
Not enough.
Cool.
So that's Gloria, and we're done.
Thank
and
you.
Like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe. We are Well Behaved Women podcast everywhere.
And on Twitter, it is Well Behaved Women, but it's BH. It's like the letter B, haved.
Oh, okay.
I have learned that recently. Because I was searching for us, and I was like, why can't I find this?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Well Behaved Women podcast everywhere, and on Twitter, just drop the E from B.
Okay.
From behaved. You get it. Yeah, I feel like we...
You figured it out. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I mean, you know what? I'll go on our website, and I'll put a link to our Twitter on there.
Cool.
So you can go to wellbehavedwomenpodcast.com, listener, and... and click on I will put a little bird link, and you can click on that, and it will take you to our Twitter.
Sounds great.
If that is what you need in your life. We don't tweet other than when new episodes are out, so.
That is fine. Listen to this thing. We made a thing.
Listen to it. Have a good week.
Yes.
We will talk to you in a couple weeks.